Let's talk icebreakers for your next continuous improvement training. Now, the first one that I'm going to offer you, this is what I use usually when I'm doing an introduction to continuous improvement. And that is, if you were an archaeologist or a paleontologist, what would you look for? Now, this is a great one because when you talk about lean and Six Sigma, you can talk about how lean is removing those big chunks of dirt, those big pieces of waste, whereas Six Sigma is when you find that dinosaur bone or dinosaur bone or mosaic, you can dust that off with that little brush, right? That's kind of the different activity. So this is a great one to use. To me, if you're going to use an icebreaker in a training, so you have people maybe introduce themselves and then answer a question, make sure that you can connect to that later in the class. So I like that to be something that I get information from, so that throughout the class, I can go back and reference some of those stories or reference or connect to what people have said. Now, this can be really important when you're trying to get people to connect to these tools and feel that they're kind of emotionally attached or vested in these, that they have some personal connection to these tools. The other one that I love to ask, but I've recently had to change my strategy, haven't replaced it yet, is what is your first job? What was your first job? And so people will talk about, for me, I was working in a movie theater. Maybe people were delivering newspapers. They've had a few of those in the class. Whatever you were doing, name, your position title, maybe how many years have you been with the company, and tell us what your first job was. Now, in the US, I get tons of great information from this. People tell horror stories, they tell of frustration. It gives me examples of challenges with the process and with the people, where maybe managers haven't supported them or set them up for success. But recently I've moved to New Zealand, and it's really interesting to hear some of these examples in this culture, which is maybe more similar to the UK, where people aren't as focused on those challenges or those problems. I don't get as many people complaining about all of the problems with the process or how mean or terrible their managers are. Now, that's great. That's fantastic that maybe they're not focusing on that. But for me, it's a bit of a challenge because now I need to find a new question. So what is a question that you ask in your continuous improvement training, or that you've seen other people ask that you think is awesome for getting the team talking and giving you some examples to share as a facilitator throughout the course?